Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Satlin. How's it going, man?
I am running on fumes. A long weekend in South Bend. Shout out to my brother for graduating. And then I ran back here to Washington, D.C., where I reside. And now we're pumping out D2 previews. We're pumping out D3 previews. We even got some like Utah State meet stuff, but like some interviews there. Uh, Gosh, what else do we even have? We got D1 regional predictions. I have to talk to you now. Ew. It's just like a quick, fast, action-packed few days. Though it sounds like you actually had a pretty busy weekend yourself.
Oh yeah. I had a nice bachelor party with my soon-to-be brother-in-law. I guess that's what he will be. And so yeah, good weekend. But yeah, it felt like we had this little lull in the action because there was no races. We were just everybody was deciding what events they were going to run in for regionals, and then all of a sudden, regionals is like here. This like
Yeah.
not this weekend, like this week, and we have to get going. And then once that happens, then everything kicks into overdrive for nationals, and like it's just about to be like really busy, really quickly, and then we'll stagger out and make it to summer, hopefully.
Dude, when we hit summer though, the
I know, I love
best
summer.
time for the site. And right now is still pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't get us wrong. But you know what else is really good, Ben? Ben,
Good
we
segue.
got thank you. I really appreciate that. I was actually pretty proud of that one. We got so many ratings and reviews, by the way. I think we got 5 new ones on Apple Podcasts. And why? Okay. Why? Okay. My Google account is now saying that I can't log in and I can't see our rundown. But what was the review that we got on Apple?
So the review we got was surprise find with two exclamation marks. I'm losing my eyesight in the subject line. Glad I stumbled on this podcast. Amazing detail and insight. Keep it up, guys. Like that's awesome. Just to have someone stumble upon it and start listening to it and enjoy it. That is such a niche, like small subset of people that I feel like that could happen to. Thrilled that we
Yeah, I
found
love
one.
it. I love it. But we also got 5 reviews there. I think we got a handful on Spotify. We're up to 102 there. We're cooking. We're cooking. You know, Chef Curry, except I think they're out of the playoffs now. So maybe not him right now. But thank you to everyone. Sincerely. We also got a handful of subscribers on YouTube where we're putting that out. We're going to try to get behind that later in the year. And we're going to continue to put out our episodes on YouTube. So please go subscribe there, watch there. Appreciate you guys a lot. Sincerely, that was awesome. Please keep doing that if you haven't already.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll finish that up. Let's move on. We got a fun little podcast. You know, we got some interesting news. Where do you want to start today?
Let's start with some transfer news, and that is what we've reported on the site already. Oussama El Bouchaby going to Alabama, the stud D2 800-meter star who I think I've made this point several times, probably could be argued is the best 800-meter runner in the country. And that could go for pros right now as well. Headed to the SEC, not where we expected, Texas A&M or Texas, but going to Alabama where he instantly bolsters their middle distance group to a infinite degree, and he'll become one of the D1 favorites, if not the favorite for the event next year.
Surprise factor 1 to 10.
I'll go like 6 or 7. I didn't see this happen. I'm not like stunned, like because it's Alabama. They've attracted big stars from the D2 JUCO level before. This just didn't seem like the hand in glove fit in terms of an 800-meter star going somewhere where they've traditionally skewed 1500 and up for their big star transfers.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Alabama very clearly is trying to win an SEC title. Like they're a very good, well-rounded track and field program, but the 800 has never really been like their marquee event. They had Jacob Lamb, I think last year on 146. He was not really at the same level as a few other guys who were maybe running 146, but regardless, he was a great talent. but the 800 has never really been their focus. And I think this is a track and field, like try to win an SEC title, try to get someone who's going to get them points on the national stage. And I think that's what it's positioned to be, especially if he's going to be there for multiple years. That's a huge guy to have and rally around 10 points for. Um, and I also imagine that I think the Alabama guys, unless I'm missing something, I would believe that all three of those Alabama distance guys, the Kip Sang, Kip Rop, and Chariot, and I know I'm butchering that last name, but if so, I'm assuming they're all coming back, and if that is the case, then it tells me that this scholarship, assuming that I'm sure he got a scholarship, um, I would be
At
surprised if he
least.
did not. I'll be surprised if he did not. That and a a bag of cash, which is just a
Yes.
joke, or maybe not. I don't know, but just a joke.
NIL. It
Anyway,
could be
yeah,
legal.
NIL, it could be legal. You never know. I imagine that it's just not associated with the cross country aspect of that scholarship allocation that Alabama has traditionally been establishing. So, a great pickup for Alabama. Like if I'm Bama, I see no downsides at all. And frankly, if I'm El Bouchayby, I mean, you're running in the SEC. Like you're competing against the best of the best of the best of the best. This is where the best 800-meter runners are. It's maybe just as deep as the ACC, but the top end. I mean, this is a guy where like if you want to face the best, SEC is going to get you that point.
Well, especially when Texas joins the conference too.
True.
Like the Big
Mhm.
12, I think you can make an argument is the best of the best from
Okay.
year to year
Fair.
with Iowa State and Texas. But yeah, from an Alabama perspective, this is a home run. Like this is a no brainer. If you have the opportunity to get him, you get him. Like you said, from a conference, from a national perspective, like point perspective, he's going to become someone who's going to come in and at the bare minimum give you 6+ points in every competition he's in. Like, and that is too good to pass up on. I think from his perspective, it's more of an interesting thing where, sure, you're obviously going up in competition. You're going to get a race wherever you want against whoever you want with Alabama's schedule and resources. But I don't see him having obviously that guy, and maybe it'll be Kip Sang who will train with a lot, but he doesn't have that kind of 1A or 1B partner, or a traditional like 800-meter powerhouse program that he's going to. So that's a little bit of the surprise there. But overall, I think home run by Alabama. If I was grading Bouchaby, I would say like B+.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is like I don't think there's like a ton of like negatives per se for either side, but I agree. I don't think this was the initial fit that we suggested. I don't think we thought that this would be where he lands. Doesn't necessarily make it a bad
No,
fit by any means, but I think it's clear that like Texas A&M in our eyes were probably the best fits on paper. So yeah, we'll be interested, especially now that Texas gets to face this guy now every year. So
and
assuming
that's
that they
is
come
that
in,
next year or is
and
it
I was
two
going to ask that
years?
same. I think it's next year. I don't know that for a fact. I think it is. Um, but yeah, we'll see.
Do we want to move on to the other big news of the week?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Indiana hiring Eric Heins, and I'm realizing I don't have his official title up, so you're gonna have to.
He's the
Uh,
going to be the distance coach for Indiana. Came from well, obviously Northern Arizona. He was the coach who pioneered the Northern Arizona men to their first NCAA cross country title back in 2016. Left to go to Houston with his wife. His wife, I believe, Casey Heins, is a very accomplished teacher. There was a very key career opportunity for her in Houston. He was at St. Thomas University or University of St. Thomas, one or the other, in Houston. Began the track and field programs there at the varsity level. Left, ventured to Louisville, and now he's been at Louisville since March of 2021, I believe. And now he is now taking the Indiana job. I am going to hijack this conversation a little bit. I will just
Go
say
ahead.
this was something that I've heard. Hines' name was being in consideration. What I was told, and we have not reported this on the site for because I just want a couple more sources on that, or at least one more source. But I feel extremely confident in saying that Ben Thomas, the former Oregon, Virginia Tech coach, very accomplished, one of the best coaches in the NCAA entirely, he was being considered for the job. Undoubtedly, he was being considered. He was being viewed. In fact, from what I have been told, Indiana wanted Ben Thomas. They were interested in him. Um, there is another school in play. That school has supposedly and rumoredly uh, caused some mix-ups, and that is ultimately what allowed Indiana to go then choose Heins. I'm not reporting that yet because I want a little more info on that and I want a little more sourcing to back it up. But I do feel confident saying that Ben Thomas was looking at Indiana being considered by Indiana, which makes this hiring that much more interesting because from my sources and from what I've been told, it sounds like then that means Ben Thomas could be heading elsewhere soon.
Well, yeah, I think you can connect the dots of saying Thomas probably has a little higher stock than Hines at the moment, and I think it makes sense that Indiana possibly was prioritizing him over Hines, and if they ended up landing on Hines, which I still think is a great hire, that you could connect the dots to Thomas may have security elsewhere. But yeah, a really fascinating hire for Indiana as they kind of move on to this new era for the program. I think it's a really good fit for both coach and team. I think the little note that you had at the end of the article about Camden Marshall, I think, is
Mm-hmm.
also very significant that he will be staying at Indiana after this hire, which I think is very significant. And I think Indiana just needed a refresh. I think they needed a new face in there. I think he's going. Obviously, Hines brings great experience from his NAU days. He has great experience from a plethora of other coaching jobs. I don't think you'll find someone who's traveled quite as much as he has. And I think that'll be very beneficial. I'm sure he's going to be able to recruit well. And it'll just be fascinating to see how quickly he can get them back up into maybe a top 10 contender status. And for this, is it like for this fall or next fall? Like, how long is that going to take? I'm curious to see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And I like all the points that you made there. I just, before I go on my tangent, just want to say, we, just from the Ben Thomas perspective, all of this, I'm not reporting anything further other than he
Yeah.
was just interested there. So in any suggestions are just thoughts, speculations at this point, but some, there's clearly an interwoven web related to that
Yes.
coaching ripple effect there. For Hines, though, I mean, I think it's a really good, smart hire. It's no surprise that a day before or 2 days before he gets hired, we're able to say that Camden Marshall's coming back. Like clearly that was a hire that saved him from probably leaving.
Yeah.
Again, speculation, but probably seems safe to say. Um, you just look at what he brings to the table. It makes me wonder, though. Indiana has been a pretty balanced program. They've had cross country
Hmm.
success, middle distance success, but a lot of it has been middle distance. They have been an 800-meter powerhouse, right? Like they've had, middle distance guys who have, been great before Camden Marshall, and success in other events as well. And it makes me wonder, Hines being a cross country guy, but only being the distance coach, like what kind of sway, influence, recruiting, how much money is he going to have to work with? Like what does that look like for him and how fast can he kind of build this team? And it makes me wonder, like, are we going to see a more endurance centric program now that he's there?
Yeah, and I think that's why the Thomas fit would have made a lot more sense,
Hmm.
bringing in a more middle distance, someone who's viewed as more of a little bit more of a middle distance coach than Hines, who from the NAU background had a bunch of 5K, 10K guys. So I could absolutely see them heading in that direction. And if they want to be more competitive in cross country, I think they're going to have to be. I mean, if you look at a lot of these top tier cross country programs, a lot of them very much skew towards 5K, 10K guys. There's very few that can kind of split the difference there of having a wide range of 800 to 10K guys. And some programs are able to do that, but a lot of programs are able to improve a lot in cross country by just making sure they're focusing on that endurance side.
Yeah, and I do also feel confident in saying that Indiana is going to lose a couple guys. Like there's one or
Hmm.
two dudes I know for a fact that they are going to be losing. So I don't. I don't want to say this is going to be a rebuild, but I don't think this is going to be an overnight like revamp
Yeah.
either. That's my guess. Again, and I don't know what the resources are there for that Indiana program, but I mean, I do like the hire. I mean, like, especially if you are going to try to really invest and move in that cross country direction, that'll be an interesting fit. But a lot of implications. So I'm very, very excited to see how this unfolds. It could be as soon as the next couple of weeks. It could be as soon as July or August. I don't know, but it could be interesting.
I know we had such a big coaching carousel last year and maybe 2 years ago as well. Do you think we're going to see a lot of some musical chairs going on this year as well?
I do actually. In fact, I'm pretty confident. I know I have one, probably two um, insights from coaches who are heading elsewhere
Okay.
from pretty established programs, I should say, like programs that you would not be surprised to see on the national stage for cross country. So I know for a fact there's two. Now, granted, some are in distance roles, assistant coaching roles,
Yeah, of
things of that nature.
course.
But yeah, there
But
are some moves going to happen.
that's all it takes is like two people leaving decently high profile jobs, and then that just gets the whole thing spinning because those programs are going to hire from other good programs, and then those programs are going to have to hire. Like it kicks it all off with just one or two. I know we've seen that before. So yeah, first little trickle of news here with Heins, and I'm very excited to see what the rest of the landscape looks like in the next few months.
Yeah, so he was great, and I'm just happy he's back at this kind of level.
Yeah.
Like Louisville, they're not going to invest in distance runners; they just aren't. So to kind of see him now have his spot in Indiana is nice to see. So yeah,
Absolutely. Let's move on to talking about some our reactions to the regional declared athletes list. So some of the scratches that we saw, some of the decisions to not scratch. I think we also saw some of those that were very, very interesting. Let's start at the top. The biggest star in our sport, Caitlin Tui. She is scratching the 10K and deciding to go do the double in the 1500 meter and the 5K. We had a lot of speculation about this, especially after I think a post race interview that saw her talk about considering doing the 1500. We wondered if that meant she was going to do both or just do the 15. Turns out it is both. I think you're a lot more optimistic in her chances to do the double than I am. So with that in mind, do you think this is a good decision for her?
I think it's a good decision. I don't know if I'm that. I think I'm definitely more optimistic. I don't know if I'm that much more optimistic.
Okay.
I don't know if she's the
What
single day double.
which event do you feel better in? Let's start with that.
If she, well, it depends if she was fresh. If she was fresh, I'd say the 5K, but she's not going
Of
to be
course.
fresh.
Yeah, that's the hard part, right?
I mean, I think at that point I would say then the 15. I just feel like it doesn't really matter what Plord or Appleton or Thornton bot or whatever throw at them. I just think if she's fast enough and she can run 406, she will win. That's pretty much my thinking. I can't imagine she loses the 15. It's, but like, also like the women, someone if I'm Plord in that 1500 field who's also doing the 15 5K double,
Yeah.
you have to be like, I'm gonna make this fast for you. I think the women in the 15 want that race to be tactical. And I think the women in the 5K want the race to be fast and aggressive. Gives them the best chances of beating Tui. The 15, I don't think anyone's beating Tui.
I think if it's tactical, I think there's a little bit more of a chance there
What
to
do you
beat
mean?
Tui. To beat
Well,
Tui.
I mean, yes,
If I'm
yes.
Florida,
Like,
I would almost prefer it to be tactical.
no, and I agree. I like I say, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
they want that.
Right,
But
right. Okay, I gotcha.
yeah, I think they want, and the 15, I think they want to be tactical
Right.
because if it's just a test of fitness,
Yeah,
Tui will beat them. I'm just saying, even if it is tactical, Tui's still
likely
going
gonna be one.
to
Yeah.
win. Tui's probably still going to win. Like this is not. I don't think we should overcomplicate this. I don't want to doubt her, and for that reason of not wanting to doubt her, I'm scared to be like, I don't know how she's going to do on the double on the same day. It's a very scary thought, and I just don't know.
So I agree with you mostly on the 1500. I think she's the heavy favorite. I think there are some very good challengers though, and I think it is shaping. I think the 1500 meter is shaping up to be a better field than the 5K because all these women are going to be fresh. And the 5K, and I mean, we can get into this a little later, or we can get into now with Olamame and Chilangat scratching the 5K in favor for the
Yep.
10K. You lose a lot of firepower in that 5K, and the firepower that is there in the women's 5K is now a lot of them aren't necessarily going to be fresh either. Obviously, the one exception to that, Parker Valby, who I think is probably the biggest winner out of all of this, because like this is as clear of a runway for an NCAA title that she's going to have while Tui is in the NCAA. Like, this is it. She'll probably have better chances if Tui ends up going pro by the beginning of next outdoor season. But this is a huge opportunity. A lot of the top contenders are either scratching or are not going to be fresh. This is her opportunity to make it fast and see if she can drop Tui. With that said, I don't see her doing that. And I think Plord could end up being a very good challenger, but I don't trust her ability to double nearly as well as Tui.
So who's your favorite in the 5K?
I think it still is Tui, but yeah. I think like it's very slim. Like I would say she has an over 50% chance to win, but I would not go a lot further than that.
And I think that's a fair assessment. Again, it's not like I don't ever want to. Like, I'm so sick of doubting her and then just getting destroyed.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that we're doubting her. I just think it's like we just don't know how she does on a single day double against the best women in the country. Period. Yeah. Like it's not that she isn't individually the best 5K runner or individually the best 1500 runner. We just don't know how she'll respond, and we don't know how fast that 1500 is going to be. If the 1500, if she has to run 406, which I feel like she'll probably have to run 409, maybe 410. Like, that's not easy. If she has to do that, then like that's not going to be an easy 5K. And even if Parker Valby isn't, clicking at 100%, even if we still have ongoing injury concerns, Parker Valby's like, I'm going to hit the gas. And
she's going to run 15:20. Like, you're going to have to run faster than 15:20 to beat her.
And that's a big ask for anyone.
I mean, there's a reason why this double doesn't get even tried hardly ever, and much less successfully done.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm like, 15:20. Like we don't give, we don't think about a time like that twice. But 10 years ago, we'd be like 15:20. No way. Like, it's never going to be that. Like 15:20 has now become the new 15:30, right? Like, it's just a different level. So we'll see what happens. But I think she's favored at both. We will see.
What did you think about Plord's decision to do the same thing? Because I think we have differing opinions here. I understand it. Like, I get why you love it. I'm guessing you love the confidence. Like, you love just the putting yourself in two opportunities. Like,
yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. Yes, the fact that she has two opportunities, but it also depends on how you look at this. From a 1500 perspective, I think the 1500 is her best event. I think it in a World War II, it doesn't exist. She's the national title favorite, and she's going to be completely fresh for that. If she had to do the 5K beforehand, I would not have liked this, but she does the 15 beforehand, so I like it more. The problem is that I didn't think Tui was going to do the 1500 5K. I thought Tui was going to do the 5K. So if Tui is now tired on the 5K, it makes things different. Like, it's, again, a gamble. That's why we were like, figure out what she's running. So it's not Plord's fault. She couldn't have known. No. So it depends on how you look at it. I think given the information that she had, I think this was probably the best decision she could have made.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was always the likeliest, just because she was going to give herself two bites at the apple, and the 15, like you said, 1500 meter comes first. With that said, I really wish she would have just done the 5K. Like, I think that would have been. I think that race becomes so much more interesting if she's just running the 5K.
Okay,
And
well, do you think you wish she did the 5K, or do you think she should have done the
I
5K?
think
Those are
she
two different
should
questions.
have. I think.
Okay.
I think. But that's with in hindsight. Like, that's knowing what we know now, like about what Tui's doing. So like, I can't blame her. Like you were saying, can't blame her for if she didn't know. Then I think this is like your safest option to do this. But if you did know this, then she should have picked the 5K. Like, I think that gives you a really, really good chance at winning. And I think set gives you. I think there's a lot less variables in running a fresh 5K than trying to compete in 2 rounds in the 1500, where there's a lot of really competitive women in that 15.
Yeah, I think this is a no one wins, no one loses discussion / argument. Like,
Yeah.
I think it just kind of depends on how you look at it. Like, in the end, the correct answer was probably to be fresh for the 5K. The safest and like the right answer was the best answer was fresh for the 5K. The safest and correct quote unquote answer with the limited information that she probably
Yeah.
had was the 15 5K double. If she had just done the 15, I think that would have been a terrible decision. And
Yes.
I think that's smart what she did, but I just don't. I don't think there's any way we could have known, she could have known, etc., so on and so forth.
Agreed. Let's transition to talk about the men's 5K, 10K, and let's start with Drew Bosley scratching out of the 5K, still in the 10K. I think we had talked about him being on crutches in some Instagram photos, but that did not deter him to still run the 10K. Where are you at with Bosley? You like this? What are you? How do you? What confidence level do you have in him even making it to nationals?
I have no clue. I have no clue. Outside of anyone who actually knows Bosley, the NAU program, or anyone in the NAU program, I have no clue. Like, is he fit? Is he healthy? Was it just a joke that he's on the crutches? I probably not, but like, and that's like why we didn't report it. I didn't get like firm, concrete answers as to why he was on the crutches, and so I just didn't report it. I don't know. I just have no idea. I like the 10K is harder than the 5K or longer than the 5K. It's
Yeah.
more aggressive on your body. So like I guess that's a good sign, but like you're splitting hairs here. Like I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's like if he's healthy, just do it. Um, and if he's not, then don't do it. I mean, I guess it's a lot less taxing on your body to have to go through the regionals and then like if you're gonna make it to nationals, it's one less race for you. Um,
Well,
but
I
yeah,
guess I just mean like if you're worried about like injury, then like you do the event that's half the distance kind of thing. But like,
yeah,
even, like
I get that
again, like
too.
I'm just and that's and I'm just kind of making stuff up now because if you're healthy enough to race one event, you can probably do any event, right?
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something here. I feel like I'm
yeah.
missing something.
It's a weird I think decision and it I mean he's gonna be there and I think that's exciting that we're gonna get to watch him race. I just like it doesn't seem like he's going to be a contender and we can kind of and coming into the season he would have been the favorite or one of the favorites in this event. And now we're sitting here wondering if he's even going to make it out of regionals, which I think is just a very strange place to be with him.
He did miss regionals last year in the 5K, or miss nationals last year in the 5K. Didn't make it out, right? Is that true? Am I making that up? I'm pretty sure he missed it because I'm
I
pretty sure like we
I
all
feel
had
like
like
we all
13.
did we all predict that or something? Like I
It
can't
was something
remember.
absurd. Like so many of us, we had like 5 of us, and like 3 of us predicted him not to make it. And yeah, he didn't make it out of the West Regional. He was 16th in 1342. Interesting. So we'll see. I mean, that was obviously not related probably to what
Yeah.
was going on now, but yeah, let's talk about though the guy who scratched the 10K for
Yep.
the 5K. Brian Fay scratching out of the 10K for the 5K. Please tell me you love this as much as I do.
Yes, initially I was like, would have loved to have him have two opportunities, but when you think about, he's not going to have to run a 10K at regionals, he's not going to have to run a 10K before at nationals before his 5K. He is going to be fresh, and this is his opportunity to win a national title. Like, if Dylan Jacobs, you feel like he's got a stronghold on the 10K, and then he's going to have to come back after running that 10K and try to compete in the 5K. And you can come in at it fresh, and you already felt like you had a chance at beating up pretty much anybody in the country in any race, but now you're racing against half of them that aren't fresh, or at least have one race under their belt. I love it, and there is no excuse at this point. Like, I'm not saying he has to win, but he needs to finish.
I'm saying he has to win.
He needs to finish top 3. Like, it will be a failure if he does not finish in the top 3. He's too good. He's too talented. There are no excuses at this point, and that's coming from someone who is his biggest defender and has always loved his talent. But this is it. Like, this is where we were at with the Sixers all year. This is the opportunity, and they blew it, and they broke our hearts. And I feel very similar to Fay. Is like, we've seen the flashes, we've seen the windmill dunks at times, but we need to see it finished off.
That was beautiful. Well put. The difference is that Andy Powell is a much better coach than Doc Rivers
obviously
ever was. Yeah, I'm so happy he's gone. Doc Rivers, that is, not Andy Powell. Anyways, I think it's top. Like, he has to be top 2. It depends on how you feel about Dylan Jacobs on the double, things of that nature. Maybe someone else comes out there in the 5K.
Yeah.
I don't trust Nico Young this year in 2023. I just don't trust him. Frankly, I didn't really trust him a whole lot to begin with there. But he's like, when he's at his best, Nico Young's at his best. He has to be in the conversation. He should be in the conversation, but he hasn't this year. Not on the track. I just look at the field. I'm like, Fay doesn't have an excuse. Like, he should be top 2. And I think he could even be argued as the favorite for the national title. All of these guys are doubling. Like, Kiprop is not even in the 5K at all. Like, when I take a look at some of these other things, so let me bring back 1 second here. Jacobs, Hicks, Klinger, Robinson, Kiprop. Are either everyone except Kiprop is all doubling back in the 5K. Kiprop's not even in the 5K. Really, the only one top contender is Young, who's fresh for the 5K. And again, I don't think we see him as a title contender this spring. So, to me, I'm like, I think, is Fay the title favorite? I don't know.
I think you can. I think he kind of should be. Like, I mean, you put it together all the different factors, and I don't think there's a reason why he should not be the favorite. Like, he's beaten the people that he should beat all year, shown great flashes, run great times. Like, it's all sitting up for him. Like, like I said with Parker Volby, this is the opportunity. Everything's lining up. The stars are aligned. You have an easy path, quote unquote. This is the opportunity for Fay just as much.
Wouldn't it be, just quickly going back to Volby, wouldn't it be wild if the year where she's like dragging her leg and clearly not healthy is the year that she beats Dewey and wins a national title?
But we both said, though, she's ahead of schedule compared to last year.
Okay, yeah. The difference is that when we said that, we didn't see her limping across the line. Like,
granted, that's true. But again, she's racing earlier and faster this year than last year.
I'm in agreement with you. But when I see someone with a leg and a half, I get a little concerned. I'm sorry.
Why would you ever be concerned about that? Yeah.
Well, who would have thought? So I mean, but honestly, if Volby does do that, I mean, like, you want to talk about the most like heroic performances, the most incredible. I mean, that would be probably in my top 10, I imagine. Anyways, let's move. I want to talk about, speaking of things that leave me a little scratching my head. There's a few of these here. Everlyn Kemboy is in the 1500 5K 10K double. I'm missing something. Like, I'm absolutely
I'm here for it. Do every race. See how many races you can qualify for nationals for.
What are we like? I think Kemboy's been great this year.
She has been.
She's been awesome. I think we were even like, hey, you know who could win the 10K national title if it draws her away?
Yeah.
Could be Kemboy. I don't think we have her favored, but I think we're
No.
like, it could happen. I think you and I both think like it could happen. Why are we doing this? Like, why are you going to run a 1500 prelim, race the 10K that same night? Like, why would you jeopardize that? And then run the 1500 finals and then run the 5K. I think later that same night is it? Is it
Yeah.
that same night?
I think so.
And that doesn't make sense. The 1500 is clearly not her best event. You know, yes, she has a 412 altitude conversion. Just do the 10K, 5K. Because what happens? And she's not. But what happens if she qualifies for all three?
Yeah.
She's
I don't
not.
know.
She's not. I will be shocked if she does. I'll make a public apology on this podcast if she does. But
yeah,
what happens?
it's a weird thing to do, and you almost wonder if there's like if they're worried about her not qualifying for the 5K maybe, and they want to continue. Like I don't know. There really doesn't make there isn't anything that makes a whole lot of sense because she's as much of a lock to make it in the 10K as pretty much anybody in the country, and you would feel similarly about her in the 5K. Like I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, listen, if she's able to qualify in all three, like I'm really, to be very clear, I'm rooting for her to
Oh,
qualify in all
100%.
three.
I'd love to see it.
I would love to see it. It'd be so cool. I don't think it's going to happen. I would be blown away if that happens. But it'd be really cool. So, don't understand it. Another thing I don't understand, Juliet Whitaker scratching the 15 from the 800. What were your thoughts when you saw that? Or sorry, scratching
Especially
the 8
the
for the
run.
1500. Excuse
Yeah.
me.
This was fascinating. And I think this is done thinking that Tui is not running the 1500. I think that was probably I'm gonna guess that there was some thought in that because if you have the Willis that you think can win the national title, and you want to give Whitaker a chance at winning a national title, then I understand. I can understand the logic. That doesn't mean I support it because I think this is something you do in 2 or 3 years when maybe Willis has won 2 or 3 800 titles and Whitaker just can't break through, and you want to give her the opportunity to finally win that individual title. It seems early to be trying to split them up at this point in their career. Especially since I mean Whitaker has looked good in the 1500 and the mile, but she hasn't ever looked like a dominant title favorite kind of racer in that event. This was probably one of the more surprising things that I saw. I can understand the logic to a degree. I just don't think that this season is the season to do it.
The way I rationalized this, or tried to rationalize it, and I couldn't in the regional article was, okay, maybe Stanford wants team points, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Stanford wants to split them up and you get a title winner in the 1500 in Juliet Whitaker and a title winner in Roisin Willis, excuse me, and you get 10 points each. But that is super unlikely.
Yeah.
And frankly, so you're like, okay, well then, what does Whitaker have a higher chance of doing? Does she have a higher chance of finishing the top half All-American spots at the 800 meters or the top half All-American spots at the 1500 meters? Well, the answer is still 800 meters. So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you don't want to converge your points all in one race, but why? It's still the best shot to get the most points, like probability wise, I imagine. And that's what kind of confuses me. Like I don't understand that entirely. Like you have two legitimate title contenders who are probably at no worse going to finish fourth.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Their floor in that event is so much higher than in the 1500, and like maybe the race is tactical and in the 1500, and being that great under 800-meter runner will come off like be a huge benefit. But with I mean, you think about just how loaded this 1500 meter now is. That Tui and Plord are running in it. You got Olivia Howell. the indoor mile champion. You have, I mean, the Oregon duo. You just have so many top contenders in the 1500 meter. Whereas the 800, you had a top four, and really it was a top three, and then everybody else. And that's just not what the position she's going to be in the 1500 meters. And maybe they know something we don't. Maybe they're seeing something in practice that we aren't. They have done an exceptional job, the coaching staff has, with this freshman duo. They have hit all the right notes. They did they had them double back on the DMR and did way better than we really ever expected. I have been so excited to see and happy to see what the success these two have done right from the get-go. But this seems like the first big misstep.
And not only that, but like you have Melissa Tanaka in the 1500 too.
Yeah.
So what is the balance there? It's like, well, we don't want if it's, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but if the assumption is we don't want to have Willis interrupted by Whitaker or vice versa, then we're moving into what about Tanaka, who ran 409, is probably an All-American favorite right now. So it's like it's a give and take. But I just with all of this being said, I think Whitaker could be an All-American, absolutely.
Oh yeah. I just and I think like I said, in the right race, I don't think she's going to beat Tui, but she could challenge and be there right there for second. If everything breaks right, which ultimately would probably be what she would be finishing in the 800. So they just got to hope that everything breaks right for her.
One last one, unless we want to talk about more about the Alabama duo of Trelanga and Alabama. Just an interesting one that I do think caught a little bit of attention here. Jordan MacIntosh. I saw him initially on the coach's review entry. So for those who aren't aware, Portland State steeplechaser. He's run 8:39 this year and 8:41 in the steeplechase. I believe a graduate transfer from Minnesota. When he was in the entries, I didn't see a scratch or an accepted entry like lettering next to his name, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. Let's see what happens there. And then sure enough, the official entries come out. His name isn't listed at all. What is said on Instagram, and this is again only what is said on Instagram. This is I just want to be by him. This was said by him, so I just want to be very clear about where this is coming from. Has said that apparently Portland State coaches did not meet requirements to have 14 men, or to at least have 14 races in the men's, I don't know what the specifics are, through 8 meets during the 2023 indoor and outdoor track seasons in order for him to be eligible and allow him to compete in the NCAA postseason, in this case, the NCAA West Regional Championships. Because they did not meet those requirements, because there's a coaching staff change, people left, they didn't have enough personnel, they weren't capable of doing so. I believe Katie Camarena, the former Portland State standout, who's now training, I believe, with like Ellie Hennis and Hannah Steelman down in Flagstaff, she had mentioned that apparently, and again, this is all just according to what they're saying, that the staff knew in February. It's hard to comment on this because I think it's important to talk about it because it's a surprising development and a big development. And if this happened at any other school like Oregon, people would be losing their minds, right? But we only have one side of the story. Do I have reason to believe that it's false? No. There's obviously he couldn't race for some reason. Sounds like we have the reason. It just would be surprising to me that you don't know about this until the entries come out. And if that's the case, it's like, what happened? Like, how does that happen? And that's what confuses me. It's like, did no one tell MacIntosh that he wasn't going to be able to compete? And if so, like, I don't know what the intricacies are. I'm not going to pretend like I do. I can't imagine how frustrating that would be.
Yeah, the ruling that he said, the issue was they did not meet the NCAA requirement of racing 14 men at 8 different track meets during the school year. And I mean, that's something that I think, whether you know the specifics or not, a lot of athletes know that there's that kind of requirement because there's certain meets on the schedule where they're on there just to meet the quota. That's certainly the case when I was in school. I knew about this rule. I for sure knew my coaches knew about it. So there's one of two things. The coaches knew and just did nothing about it and didn't say anything about it. That, I think, in my opinion, is the worst of all these possibilities, if that's the case. And again, we're speculating based off of a one-sided story at this point. But if that's the case, that is, I think, the genuinely the worst, and it is horrible that he is having to pay the consequences. The second option is they didn't know, they messed up, they made a mistake, they didn't realize it till last second, and the NCAA made a ruling according to its rules, and that sucks too. But that's just an accident that could have been avoided. Either way, there was nothing he did wrong.
No.
And yet he's the one who's facing the consequences, which someone has to. And because this is clearly a mistake, clearly probably a rule was broken. But it just seems silly that he has to be the one that's facing.
It's silly, but I get it too. You know what I mean? Like, it's silly, it's ridiculous. We're like, really?
But well, they should be banned from next year, or something. Like they're I don't know.
I don't know. Would you want to like penalize then all the new athletes coming in? Like, I don't think that would be fair. I'm just saying. I think it's in this incident. It's like,
I think you should just have your eyes wide open. Like, you should know, like, there's a penalty.
Well, yeah. I mean, they obviously, like, whatever happened, they should have known. Right. Shouldn't have happened, right? Like, obviously, that's not the argument we're having. It's what really should happen. And is it fair to Jordan? No, he did nothing wrong. This is not his problem, based on what we know. It doesn't sound like it is. But also, like, what's the penalty then? Right? Like, what's the penalty? And it's not fair. But it's like you see the internal conflict that I'm sure, like, you know, everyone who's probably thinking about this situation too is facing. Not fair to Jordan at all. I do know, I think there was another D2 school, and I don't know enough about this, where similar thing didn't have the meet requirements. It's a smaller program too, and one of their athletes couldn't go to the national meet because of it. It happens, and like I don't think this isn't the first time, and unfortunately, this probably won't be the last time either. It's unfortunate.
No, and you just hope that this gets publicized enough to the point that like people are aware of it, and like coaches are more like are double checking their schedules, double checking their entries, and are being more cognizant of it. It's just, and again, like athletes know about like this rule, and whether they know about the.
Well, I don't think they all do.
No, I'm not saying that all of them do, but I'm saying that even if some athletes know it, then all coaches should know it. Like I think that's my larger point is like if me, Joe Schmo, student athlete, knew about it, then I would sure as hope that my coaches would.
You weren't a Joe Schmo, okay? Like let's be a little careful here. You got to the regional meet, you got to the 1500 meter finals in the same year as Yard and the Goose. All right, I don't want to hear Joe Schmo from you. I am Joe Schmo. I don't even think I'm good enough to be Joe Schmo. Okay, so, but we'll end it there on the high point of me not even being good enough to be Joe Schmo. Do you have anything further that you wanted to address?
No, I am struggling through my regional predictions right now because it is tough. There are some really, really good events this year that are very, very hard to make some cuts about who's not even going to make it to the national meet that I think in a lot of years could have All-American like contender status. So it is going to be a bloodbath out there this week at regionals. There's going to be some big surprises. I have no doubt. Be curious to see what happens.
Yeah, there's also events where I'm like, I get 9 of my 12 names in, and I was like, I don't think anyone else should go.
Wasn't gonna say that, but yes, that there's those
events. I never said which events. But I do feel that way. I get to 9 names in. It's like, this should be it. But But regardless, that's what makes this so much fun. I also think that like trying to pick the 12 names for this, I want to know what the probability of that is compared to like March Madness. Because the
Mm.
March Madness, like get a perfect bracket, it's like a 4 quintillion, whatever. I'm certain for a fact that
Oh,
getting every regional qualifier has to be far harder, like way harder. I remember we got like 11 out of 12 in the women's 10K last year, and we were like, we're so good at this. We're so good at our jobs, and that was one event for one region for one gender.
it has to be harder because there's so many more
There's way more
the
variables.
slots and yeah, 100%.
So look out for. I mean, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, that's probably out by now. Our predictions, they should be. We've got Isaac Bastion, Lane 9 interview. Great interview. It was really good. He was awesome. Go check that out for subscribers. We'll eventually put it on our YouTube. But for now, we do have Alex Phillip interview. The D3 star who was actually heading to UNC this fall.
Mm-hmm.
We have an interview with him from Brett. We have a few other things I'm going to upload from the Utah State meet that we have. We had a guy heading out there, grabbing some video content interviews there, as well as Kenneth Rook's Q&A. As well, we have D2, D3 previews. It's a whole story. We got news, we got transfer stuff. Like, Ben, stop me, I'm on a roll. But that is all I have before I exhaust myself. Yeah, that's all I got.
Like I said at the top of the show, we have a lot coming up the next few weeks. It's going to be really exciting. So buckle up. We're going to be with you every step of the way. But until we are done and ready to hit the off season, Garrett, I'll talk to you next week.
I'll talk to you.